Welcome back. So in this video I'm going to be talking about HDR maps and at the same time the built-in Iray Scan Inside lighting solution or global illumination. And like I said, and not a lot of people think about exterior lighting as interior lighting, and it's a pity, I think, because it's a huge component and a great tool that can help you a lot. So what you're looking at right now is actually a hybrid. It's both the built-in light system that comes with Iray, but also a spotlight. And I often use spotlights as sun instead of the built-in component here because it offers so much more control. And so I don't want to confuse you. Let's start with the basic thing, which is the built-in environment. So um, if you click on, let's turn off that spotlight, shall we? Because I'm going to come back to that a little bit later in this video. There we go. All right, that's it. So right now you're looking at only the environmental lighting, but you can see it doesn't have any sunlight. It's just a nice skylight component. And the way I achieve this is obviously by going down here and choosing sun disk intensity 0. And when you start, it comes at environmental intensity 1, and you think, man, I can't use this to light interiors. It's way too dark, right? It's impossible. Well, you just increase this as many times as you need until you have it visible. Now, obviously, you have to have windows. If you don't have windows, it will not work. You will not see it at all. So you have to have windows. Now, not really. Here's a trick. If you don't have windows, remove the ceiling. Okay, now we're getting creative. This is impossible in the real world, but in 3D it is possible. Let me zoom in the camera. Let me remove the ceiling first, just as an example. Okay, we're removing the ceiling. Now all the light comes straight through, so it's going to be a little bit too bright. Okay, so I'm going to tone it down. Again, the intensity is proportional to what light enters, how much light enters the room. Right now, we're using this skylight component without the sunlight because the sunlight was kind of muted here, right? And as you can see, it looks pretty nice. It's very soft, nice, and easy. And if you don't look at the ceiling, let's do that. Let's remove the ceiling from the equation. You can actually use it as a light source, and I've been using that throughout the years because it's cool, it's easy. You remove the sun and off you go. In the same fashion, you can indeed turn on the sun, and that will now enter the room. Okay, let me just lower. Yeah, let's just do some quick reference here, just quick demo. Doesn't really matter, right? This looks like sun is entering through a large window. All right, we have no idea that the ceiling is gone, and we will never know unless we look really carefully and notice that's a big blue reflection on the table from the sky above. So that's a little bit drawback, but other than that, it's a pretty cool way of lighting interiors. Just remove the ceiling and you got the whole spectrum of built-in lighting ready for your renders here. All right, as long as you don't expose the ceiling, you're good to go. All right, and this comes with additional control here. Let's say you don't like the harsh shadows. You want to have the shadows a little bit darker. Softer, right? So what you can do is you can go in here. Not a lot of people know this, but there is something called disk scale. All right, if you scale this 10 times up to 40, you're gonna get really soft shadows, almost to the point that some of them are no longer visible. Okay, very cool thing. Now, like I said, if you don't want to have the sun, you can remove it by entering 0. Now it's gone, and you only have the sky component. If you don't want the sky component, well, remove the sky component by making it almost, invisible. Then you increase the this one, the sun disk, a lot, and I mean a lot. Now you have only the sun and no sky component whatsoever. Okay, that's how creative you can get with that. Now, a drawback of using this built-in is sometimes it's a pain to control how the shadows fall. Have you noticed that, right? You got to change the time, and that will hopefully adjust it to some kind of degree of height you are okay with. Then you have to rotate it on the dome until you find or not find a good angle, right? So for me, well, I like it, I love it, looks good, but it's kind of difficult to work with. So I usually use a hybrid. That's why I have this light on in the beginning. And so now let's go back to, let's put the seating back on. All right, so let's put the seating back on. And I'm just gonna, kind of remove. I'm gonna have a higher intensity, but I'm gonna remove the sunlight, right? So I'm using this in this case only for the soft skylight component that comes through the windows and engages in beautiful soft lighting. Now, on top of that, I'm using a spotlight with a light target. And the light target is a null object, so I usually just go up here and create a null object and call it light target and place it right in the middle of the room. Then the light, in this case, here, go to parameters, here, general sub-tab, point at light target. Just click here and select the light target. That makes the light automatically target that particular point. So no matter how you move, if I move this sunlight up, it's gonna still aim at the room but hit at a different angle. Obviously this is a spotlight, so it decays over distance, so it has less impact right now, but that's the way it works, right? You can move it. You can also go to top view and wireframe. If you zoom out, you will notice that the light, if I click on it, I can also click on it right here to frame it and then zoom out around it. Can go a little bit faster with the right. There it is. That's it, right? You can also, and this is very handy, you can use the lights camera and will show you exactly what it sees. And if you use now, for instance, hidden line, it's very useful to see exactly where it goes and where it targets. And you can now use this, left click on this icon and shift, move the light, as you can see, up and down, left and right, and will automatically orbit around and target that null object, the light target right in the center of the room. It's very easy to adjust and exactly say, hey, I want this window, I want the light to go through this window and hit the floor or whatever, right? And that's why I use this hybrid model, because it's so much more precise. I would kill myself trying to guess, because that's what you do. You guess the time, the rotation angle and all that to just maybe have it here. I'd like to add a light, aim it, and I'm done with it, right? That's how you can get beautiful soft shadows. Beautiful sharp shadows from the sun. Now, obviously the sun, like I said, it's disk geometry, right? It has a little bit of diameter, height and width, so that it looks soft. Now, when using that super strong light, you don't want to overdo it. You want to keep it to a certain part of your room and then let this soft, you know, the soft light kind of move on from there. And this goes hand in hand with what I said initially. You want to have one hero in your scene. Let that hero in this case be the sunlight, but don't overdo it. Let it be a small portion of the render and let the rest rest. Okay? Now, we are almost done with this training. I have one more thing to cover, and that's HDR maps. We haven't touched them. I'm going to do that right now. So, if I just remove all the lights from the scene, just remove it. We don't need that. And we add an HDR map. So, for instance, one of my favorite is Dimension Theory. Another one is Cake and Bob. Let me just go here to Live Presets, Dimension Theory, and for instance, Skies of Radiance. And let's just pick, well, let's just take Sunny. Now, the pro about these maps is often they come with a lot of cool presets and all that, right? Unlike the built-in system, you got a lot of cool options here. Just make sure you have the sky dome visible so that it projects the sky. If you don't, it's gonna just show whatever background you have in the scene. In my case, black. Okay. Now, so having this turn on, there we go. You can see that we are still facing, it's a nice cool light, and if you want to see more of it, it's the same limitation as the built-in light has. It doesn't reach more than what comes through the windows. You can remove the ceiling, but also you can increase this to get more of the light in. As you do that, you wash out the map, the exterior map. Very important that you understand that. You wash it out. But as you can see, it looks quite cool. It illuminates the scene quickly, both with a soft component from the map, the sky portions of the map, and also with the sunlight. Now, unfortunately, it's still facing a little bit of issues here because you still have to rotate it, like dome rotation, all right, to adjust the light. And okay, that's good. We can continue. Maybe we can find a good angle and all that. But now it's just hitting that particular spot over here, and I'd like more of it to reach here, right? So there is one thing you can do. You can adjust the dome rotation on the X. So go ahead and do that. Not many people know this, but you can turn it also up and down, so to speak. And as you do that, well, you got to count a little bit here and so forth. And this is an easy way of lighting because it's just one map and some adjustments. But as you can see, it doesn't offer the same precision as the hybrid. So if you want to have control, use the hybrid. If you want to use presets with a little bit of tweaking, use that. It doesn't really matter how you light the scene. There is so many ways. I'm showing you every possible way of doing that. You gotta pick what works for you, what works for your system, what's easy for you to use, what's fun for you to use, and ultimately what brings you the vision you have onto the screen, right? So let me pick another one here. Let's pick this one. All right. And let's adjust it so we see more of it. And this one here doesn't have any visible sunlight, so it's probably in the wrong direction, right? So then we got to adjust it, and this is a bit of hit and miss again. You don't know really where you are, but it is possible, right? It is possible to get beautiful lighting using HDR maps. It's just, if you ask me, I would prefer the hybrid every single time over this, guessing work, right? These are beautiful for exterior renders, but indoors I would do something more with precision. And here's also a downside when using these HDR maps. Although they look beautiful, and an issue we have with them is that because we have limited, you know, like the window is the only point of entry the sun and sky has to illuminate our room, we have to make the pieces very, very intense, which washes out the background, which is kind of a drawback, but that's the name of the game. So one of our other favorite artists is Cake and Bob, or artists. Cake and Bob, they have these beautiful beach settings that are, you know, just gorgeous if you have watched them. If not, go ahead and do that. And they are great because they have beautiful settings as well. And now the only way you can get these settings to show is when you do not overexpose, like I'm doing right now. It's within the limits, okay, it looks great outdoors, but it doesn't project any lighting into the room. So that is a small drawback, right? That is a small drawback. And that's the limitation of this. So now if you push it, if you push the environment map, it will bring more lighting into the room, but at the same time get a little bit washed out. As long as you are okay with that, you can push it as hard as you like, still see something out there and get some lighting into the room. So, and there is no other way than that other than faking it. Remember, if an HDR map, now I'm going to talk a little bit about strategy. Sometimes you can use this map to have a little bit of exterior, which is great, and a little bit of lighting into the room. But if it's still not enough, bring more. Add a point light, add a spotlight, or whatever. Add fillers, right? And I already have shown you fillers, right, in the first video, so we don't need to do that again. But you can place a light behind the camera, right? A spotlight or a point light. That will illuminate this room and bring extra lighting that we maybe don't need to know what it comes from. But it's faking, it's adding extra light. Because let's face it, if I truly wanted to illuminate the interior correctly, I would need to bump this up to maybe, I don't know, 80? Right? At 80, maybe the interior will look good, but the exterior now is very, very washed out. Another way of doing this, let me add a small bonus for you here. I love over delivering, guys. I have, you know, I could talk 5 hours just about this topic because I've been doing this for 13 years professionally as a teacher. And so one way you can get away or around this limitation is to render dual layers. So let me show you how that works, okay? So the way this goes is that we render two renders. We render one that has the interior the way we want it. Then we render one that has the exterior how we want it, and we combine them in Photoshop. So let's say this one looks pretty good on the inside, right? Now, let me just, we don't need to do a proper camera framing. It's just a quick example of what's happening. Let me do a little bit more on the right, so we get a little bit more of the right window here, and just zoom out a little bit. Okay. Cool. So yeah, another thing you can pay attention to is camera framing, and I'm not going to be covering that in this tutorial because I'm not sure what happened here. I kind of lost my camera. Yeah, I kind of lost the camera altogether. So let me load it. I'll just quickly add a camera. And very important, when you add cameras, you want to turn off the headlamp. All right. You know, camera framing is kind of the second most important things in 3D. One of the most important ones is obviously lighting. When you get lighting right, you have to think about camera framing, because if you don't frame properly, the gorgeous lighting you add can really backfire on you. So it's one element of keyframing is called cropping properly. And you don't want to crop big objects, like, for instance, large items shouldn't be visible like that, like just a small thing. You either want to show half of the large item, just a small bonus for you here, half large item, or remove it altogether, or show it in full. And as you can see, this bar right now, I'm also placing the bar with a little bit of air, so it doesn't just collide with the air, right? It looks more natural that way. And further on, if you continue and show it in full, you don't want to put it so close to the edge so that there's virtually no breathing space around it. So you want to have balance. And like I said, I'm not going to go into, I have a great training in the DAS store called Camera Master that I recommend. That will show you more about cameras, but you want to have balance around items that are large. All right, so let me just do a really quick render here and just get this room looking okay. All right, and I'm gonna just do a very brief render, small size, and I'm not gonna use any fancy quality, just really render without CPU because I'm screen recording at the same time. So this is just a very quick, I'm just gonna render for a minute. So now this is the render that's gonna look okay interior wise, right? This is gonna look great on the interior. And so basically I'm just gonna let this be a little bit less noisy. I'm going to let it render for a minute or two, and then I'm gonna come back and make a secondary render of the exterior looking a little bit better. Now here's the thing, the exterior should be overexposed always, unless you are having direct sunlight. If you have direct sunlight in a room, you wanna, and you kind of maintain the same exposure on it, like a normal good exposure on it, and it looks normal, so to speak, right? It looks good, then the exterior will also look the same when you have direct sunlight. But right now we don't have so much direct sunlight. We have mostly this indirect light, which is the skylight, right? So in this case, it's always going to be, because we want to see more of the interior, it's always going to be overexposed in back there in outdoors, right? Okay, so let me now cancel this. This is just a quick demo. We don't need to render any beauty shots. All right, and let that be our, I'm going to save that, save last render. All right, and I'm just gonna put it in here, call it render 1 BMP. Now I'm gonna lower the intensity. I'm gonna go in here, lower the intensity here, so that the exterior looks great. Still, I want it overexposed just a little bit. Never ever, when you're having so much skylight as I'm having right now, have the exterior normal, like default, like 1. That's not gonna look okay. That little light cannot oversaturate the room, so you gotta be a little bit realistic about it. You gotta have a little bit of overexposure, unless, like I said, you have direct sunlight and you are equalizing both of them. So that will look pretty good. All right, maybe we can do 15. Let me render that real quick. So this is our exterior now rendering. Then we're gonna render a so-called mask, and the mask is gonna be used to extract what's happening outdoors, and so we can overlay it on the other render we did. So, and the exterior looks pretty good as of now, so I can just go ahead and cancel. We don't need a better quality than this. And I want to save. I'm going to call this render number 2. All right, and BMP. Now I'm going to render a mask, and masks are useful for controlling what's outside, for instance. And so the way to do that is I'm going to turn off. You can just use scene only. This will disable all kind of lighting whatsoever. And I have no light in the scene. Just to make sure it's pitch black, I'm going to add a light and blacken it. Blackening means you are adding intensity 0. That truly will now be pitch dark inside. If you have emissive light sources, you gotta remove them. They will still shine. Now, what's important here is that we go to Window, Panes, Environment, and choose White as a color. Okay. So now we're gonna have a white exterior behind. And if this is not showing, we can try and go into let's do, what I would like to do is to remove the windows. The windows may be blocking the light. So I'm gonna go to surface selection, select the big window, click on it. That's it. Surfaces and larger window glass, obviously, and now tone down the opacity to 0. That now lets that shine through, and I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I don't think we have a window here, right? So there is a small emissive light here on this device right here on the table, but that's okay. I'm just going to render this real quick. We can just remove that in Photoshop. Any small lighting, like I said, emissive will still render here, so we've got to remove them. There is a device on the table that illuminates this piece of paper, the roll of paper. Save, and I'm gonna call that render mask. Alrighty, let's turn off Photoshop. Sorry, let's turn on Photoshop, remove Dash Studio, and I'm gonna show you how to blend this. We are now inside Photoshop, and I'm gonna simply load our renders straight in. Okay, now I'm gonna use this as a main render. Okay, I'm gonna put this on top. So using Control A to select all, Control C to copy, use Command on a Mac, go back here, Control V to paste. So I've got this exterior on top as a layer. Okay, now I'm gonna go here and remove this additional emissive light spillover there and just paint it away. Any other thing? Okay, select all, Control A, copy, Control C, go back here. I'm gonna use this symbol at the bottom here, this icon, to create a mask. I'm gonna Alt click on the mask and use Control V to paste the mask. Now I'm gonna go back here and use that to remove any light that was in the interior. And so I think we are good. Yeah. The mask removed the darker interior, right? So we're only seeing the slightly overexposed exterior now. As opposed to if I remove this mask, you can see now that this now darkens the entire room, right? So that's a small bonus for you now, how we are using, we're using a good amount of interior light, and at the same time a less overexposed exterior compared to what we had originally. You have to have it overexposed, so don't do the error of just doing, you know, nothing there. You have to have it, but not as much as here. Well, frankly, it should be that much, but let's not, you know, if you want to have a little bit of something going on there, then that's the way to do it. Besides, you can now click on the main layer and control just how much that effect you want to have, right, with the slider. Maybe somewhere here. It's a little bit less overexposed externally, but you still see what's going on. So guys, that pretty much concludes all the tools we've been covering. All right, let me just bring out this little bit cheat sheet here a little bit quick. And as you see, we covered everything here. We covered point lights, we covered spotlights in conjunction with point lights to enhance the effect or to get the desired effect. We covered emission surfaces, we covered HDR maps, which require big windows, or you can remove the ceiling, right? We covered the built-in Iris sky or sun lighting system, which also requires big windows, or if we remove the ceiling. And we covered the camera light, which is basically just the light behind the camera for fake effects or other lights, or to enhance other lights or effects. So that is pretty much it, guys. That's all the tools you have and need to create really outstanding interior renders. Just remember to use balance and common sense so that you let one of the things, of the effects, be the dominant one, the main one, and this kind of like the hero of your story. Okay, guys, so that's all from that for me now, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a few things, and now go ahead, have some fun, and I see you soon again.